Welcome to the Next Level Podcast, powered by San Manuel, a series connecting you with the best minds in casino, hospitality, tribal government, and beyond. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the Next Level Podcast. I am so excited today. We've talked about doing this podcast together for, I feel like it's been a year and a half, and I am super excited to introduce the Executive Vice President and the CEO of Gaming, Siobhan Lane from Light & Wonder. Siobhan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. We have been talking about it for a while, so it's great.
We made it happen. We got to the finish line. Well, we're at the starting line.
Not quite yet. Yes. In the next hour, we'll get to the finish line.
It sounds fantastic. So first thing, just to make sure that the world knows, Siobhan, I want to make sure that you have like a few minutes to start out and tell us your origin story and how you got your way to where you're at now.
Okay, great. I'll try to get it done in a few minutes. I've been in the gaming industry since 2007. So it's been a minute. What's that? Almost 18 years to the day. I think I started in early July back then. Didn't know anything about the industry, didn't know anyone in the industry. I had a degree in marketing and international business. So had worked in marketing and advertising in a few places up until relocating to Las Vegas with my husband back then, and limited industry in Las Vegas. So I think I applied for a role on monster.com when that was a thing at Aristocrat at the time as a regional marketing specialist. So kind of the lowest person on the totem pole within the marketing function. And ended up getting the role and really progressed through that organization for 12 years. I spent 12 years of my career at Aristocrat, and then took a leap and joined Scientific Games in 2019. And really with the goal of running a transformation program across the organization and turning around the gaming business. And I've been at Light & Wonder now for about 5 years, and we're well on our way with that transformation. And it's just been a great 18 years in the industry. As you know, there's just wonderful people like yourself we get to work with every single day. And, you know, it's evolved and changed so much in that time. So that's kind of my background and how I got here. And I've done several different roles in those 18 years, and it's really been an enjoyable experience.
I love that you've worked your way from the bottom up. I'm a firm believer in when you start there, it gives you that humble beginnings and reminds you of what you have to do to get to where you're at. How do you maintain keeping those humble beginnings there, and how do you use that in your leadership style? Because I'm always think about when I'm speaking in front of people or when I'm making decisions, I have to figure out it's got to be good for everyone, and that includes me when I first started in the business or you when you first started. How do you keep yourself attuned to that?
Well, I think that journey is really important. I think as a leader, you constantly have to be putting yourself in your audience's shoes, whether that's somebody working on the front line in your organization, or, you know, you're communicating to and interacting with so many different stakeholders. So, you know, going on that journey yourself is just going to help give you that context as long as you continue to reference that and put yourself in those people's shoes. You know, it's a very different experience to work on the front line versus serving on the board, or, you know, depending on where you are in that stakeholder group that you're talking to. So I think it's all beneficial context and just helps you as a leader in your communication style. And I'm a big believer in communicating and providing context to our employees. I think it helps empower them and helps them do the best, you know, in their job and make the best decisions in their job if they are getting that context from leaders. And so I really try to do that in my communication style and just provide that context so they're empowered to be their best selves at Light & Wonder.
So let's dive straight into the communication style. We've talked about this before as closet introverts, both being in that role in our regular lives, but having to make sure that when we are in our professional lives that we have to make some slight adjustments to that for purposes of communication.
Right.
What kind of tips do you have for people who are in that space where they are, a little bit shy, or they aren't as confident at the point in time, but they need to project that to be able to be a leader among people. How have you been able to do that?
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating topic, and that's why we've talked about it before, especially when we think about leaders, because I don't know about you, but growing up, especially in a Western society, the role models of leadership that you probably looked to were these very, extroverted, great orators, had a certain style among them. And so, I think when we talk about diversity and leadership, it's very much, attuned to personality style, extrovert, leader, introvert versus other attributes of diversity. And it doesn't mean that you can't be an impactful leader. It just means that you have to have confidence that you're taking a different approach and using a different style. And, you can have some doubts about that. I think early on in my career, especially as I advanced in leadership positions, I had my doubts about whether I could be an effective leader because I was a little bit more on the quiet side. I'm a thinker, I'm an observer, I process, I'm a very effective active listener, but I'm not the highly extroverted, type of leader that you might traditionally think of. So, there's some self-doubt along the journey on, can I be an effective and high impact leader because of that? And I really learned to embrace that difference. And, if I tried to be anything else, it would just come across as inauthentic and not me. And so I never really tried that. I just took the leap and hoped that people would see I could be just as an effective leader by taking a different approach and using a different style. And I've had team members come up to me and express appreciation and gratitude for that style because it benefits them in different ways as well. So it was definitely a journey for me to build that confidence and accept that difference in myself and really have the courage and really faith that you can drive just as much impact. It just might look a little bit different.
And I think the authenticity part that you speak of is so important when you go to how you're going to lead people and speak, to be authentic to who you are, as well as just, again, if you are completely fake about it, it's going to be picked off very easily. It doesn't help you.
Yeah, that's one thing about being a leader. All eyes are on you and they are like reading your every step and interpreting your every step. So I think you really have to just be as authentic as you can, really try to connect with people in that most authentic capacity and just, believe in yourself and trust yourself that you're going to lead in the way that you can. Having said that, as an introvert, the way I define it is introverts, spending time around people. It's not that we can't stretch ourselves and get into our uncomfortable zone. We have to do that every single day and you have to be on all the time, but it's energy draining. I think for extroverts, they get energy from being around people. So,
absolutely.
As you advance in your career, you do have to step into those uncomfortable situations maybe, or the more energy draining situations. You got to turn it on. You got to, interact with people and make sure you show up in the right way. It's just at the end of the day, you get home and you're like, okay, I need to recharge just by being by myself for a minute.
For sure. When we have our all team meetings, I try to provide as much energy as I can, but I am exhausted at the end of the day when we get up there and talk for a few times a night throughout the day, talking to team members. It's so wearing for an introvert that you're like, they don't recognize. I don't think people recognize the amount of mental stress it can put on someone.
Yeah. Or just like use of energy. Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yes.
So I want to dive into communication just one more way as well. Light and Wonder worldwide, like you have team members throughout the globe, and being able to communicate on different time zones and different, different levels of team members. How are you able to package communication successfully and with such a broad audience there?
Yeah, I think there are just some fundamentals that no matter where in the world you're located, you can kind of build your communication strategy around that. However, as a kid, I grew up moving around lots of different places, and I think that really armed me with a curiosity about different places and cultures, and certainly a respect for different, cultural nuances. And I love to go to all of our different locations, whether that's in Asia, India, Australia, Europe, wherever it might be, and learn about those nuances. And I look at it as a challenge, like how do I adjust my style to relate and connect with our employees or customers or perhaps other stakeholders in a different environment or perhaps a different culture. And again, if you put yourself in their shoes, in India, as an example, the culture is very much based on hierarchy. And so that almost makes me uncomfortable because I pride myself on being a very accessible leader, and I don't like the idea of hierarchy and leadership. I think that can almost be an obstacle in connecting with your employees and being accessible as a leader. But you have to respect that that's part of the culture, and that's the lens in which they are viewing everything through, or not everything, but some things through. So you just have to have a level of self-awareness and just conscious consideration for the environment that you're stepping into, and respect that and appreciate that.
You talked about being an accessible leader as well, and some of the traits I believe that are important to be an accessible leader is again the humility of remembering part of where you came from, but also when you were talking about leaders in the past that you remember seeing growing up, and they were always these big boisterous untouchable figures, and you and I are so not that type of person there, and we establish in different ways in building bonds. And I use an example of, we have our Team Appreciation Day coming up at Universal Studios. I will be probably dressed as a minion for that. And I understand that you have to take some of those things. I understand that potentially you in a meeting perhaps may have dressed up as Dorothy and sang in a meeting. And showing off your incredible
video
skill.
footage, and I will die if you somehow got a hold of the video footage of this.
We might have it here. No, I'm kidding. We
Please
don't have it. I wish I had that. I went looking for it.
I do these things, but I make my marketing team swear that it goes in a vault. It goes in a vault after we use it for whatever it needs to be used for. Yes, but I think the best thing you can do as leaders is to humanize yourself, put yourself out there. I mean, it was pretty uncomfortable, as maybe the same as dressing as a minion, but it's fun. It's relatable. We are humans at the end of the day. And I think the more you can kind of put yourself out there and put yourself in situations where people can maybe have a good laugh or, see you in a different light, I think it's one of the best things you can do for your brand as a leader. And just humanize, those elements. Because oftentimes we don't get to show that side of ourselves. We're put in very tough situations sometimes where we have to make tough decisions, or perhaps people don't have the context around why we're doing the things we're doing. But at the end of the day, we work in such a fun industry and with lots of lovely and interesting people. Like, let's have a little fun and take some of those chances as leaders. So that's, yeah, but never show the video.
Never show the video. I was trying to get it. Trust me, I will tell you, I did try. I did not succeed. Your team was very good about holding that down there. But, I think that you talked at the beginning about the transformation opportunity at Cygames, now Light and Wonder, and culture is such a big part of it, which you just spoke about, and how to create that culture. I think Light and Wonder has potentially one of the best cultures in the industry there for sure. How are you able to build that culture? And, I think you guys did a lot of subtle things, including an entire name change and rebrand to continue to change the culture. Talk about the importance of culture and what steps you guys took to maybe shift it from where it was to where it is today.
Yeah, I would say it's been a journey. I think the biggest thing as leaders coming into a new organization is you have to have a high say-do ratio. So we could come in and say all these things like we want to build a great culture. We want to attract and retain the best talent. We want to invest and build the best products and, do right by our customers every single day. We can say all those things, but only over a certain time horizon as we as leaders show up and role model what good looks like and the culture that we aspire to be. That's when you're going to gain trust with the team, members of the team. And it's a lot of change. It's, not only have we been going through a 5-year change transformation, but it was, it started in the midst of a pandemic. And it was probably some of the toughest moments in my career as a leader to step into an organization. Weeks later, our industry shut down and revenues went to zero. And we had to make some really tough calls that impacted a lot of our employees. And I had zero trust with any of those team members because they didn't know me. I had been in the business for about, 4 weeks. And it was really, really tough. That's not, I'm sure I was perceived in many different ways, but you can't worry about that at that point in time. What you're trying to do is preserve the organization for the greater good and kind of get on the other side of this really tough situation. But, we've come a long way, including a name change. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the name when it first came out, Kenji. I know you had some thoughts, but over time, based on how leaders showed up, how we behaved, delivering on our commitments, I think that set a real foundation for us to shift the culture and start to build on that foundation. But I'm a big believer that leaders have to lead the way. They have to role model before we can expect others to follow. And, we're still on our journey. We're not perfect by any means. We'll forever be evolving and progressing. But I'm really, really proud of what we have built so far. And so for you to recognize that as one of as a culture that stands out in our industry is really meaningful. So thank you for that. And I'm just really proud of the teams. They've gone through so much change. They had to take the brunt of the industry feedback on our name change early on. I think we've kind of grown into it over time, which
absolutely.
And it's important to me as a leader. We do all these tests as leaders as we progress through our career. And some of my main motivators are creating a great experience for the people that work in our organization. I'm really attuned to that. I'm really sensitive to that. And so I'm motivated every single day to do what I can do at my level to create a positive experience. So I'm hoping people feel that and see that. And thank you for recognizing it.
I love the say-do ratio line. That is fantastic. I'm stealing that for the future. When it comes to Light and Wonder, it is something that I think that took the industry kind of as though, why is it Light and Wonder? And I was one of those too. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was like, I don't understand it yet. But the fact is you continue to grow and evolve, and you're going to continue to grow and evolve into the name. And amazingly, we also went through a rebrand at almost the same time, going from San Manuel to Yamava, which in fact means rebirth and spring and growth, which is essentially what I think Light and Wonder's component was too, is that whole hey, it's a new start. And I truly believe symbolically what you guys did with Light and Wonder. And I think one of the reasons, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, behind that was you were a fragment of a whole bunch of other companies that had been taken on year over year over year. Not just Saiging, but WMS and Bally and Shufflemaster and all of these conglomerates of businesses that came together, and people identified themselves with the business that they used to be in. And so they were like, oh, I'm a WMS person, or I'm a, whatever it may be, as opposed to everyone is now a Light and Wonder person. I think that helped align everyone together towards the common goal.
You're exactly right. It was actually fascinating coming into the organization. Almost every person I interacted with in those early days, that was the line. My name is Paul, and I'm from insert brand here, WMS, Shufflemaster, Bally. And I was like, that is so interesting. Just a a cultural phenomenon that no one really identified with the Scientific Games brand unless you were from that legacy company originally. So from day one, it was pretty fascinating, the kind of cultural factions that still existed years after all of these acquisitions had taken place. And so, we contemplated going with one of those legacy brands, but that wouldn't help create a clean slate. And even though it was a daunting task and, we had to grow into our new name, it did create that clean slate and gave everyone an equal opportunity to start to build an identification with the new brand and the new organization as part of this transformation journey. And the genesis of the name, first of all, we're in like 300 different jurisdictions across the globe. So finding a name that's legally accessible is a daunting task in and of itself, but we wanted it to be relevant to the industry. So if you think about walking on a casino floor, there's the lights everywhere, emanating mostly from the games that we create. And there's a certain level of wonderment in the games that you play. There's an art and a science, and there's a mix of that. And there's a wonderment around the winning and the losing aspects of that. So we wanted to capture those two kind of elements of that experience when you not only walk onto a casino floor, but sit down and experience the games that we develop. So that's what led us to the name Light and Wonder.
That's fantastic. You talked about, like, again, building that brand and that source of transformation. And I think another thing you guys have done really well is that you have promoted people from within and developed some team members from within, but also the people that you've brought in from the outside and building a team have been fantastic adds to the team. Talk about your team building strategies, and then also maybe a little bit about the development strategies of how you grow and mentor others.
Yeah, this is one of the most rewarding parts of my job is, creating opportunities for others to advance. I mean, they do 99% of the work. But when you find like a real high potential person in the organization, and, most of my job is just connecting the dots. Like, we need a superstar over here. You are a superstar that I think is capable of doing this. Let's connect you to that opportunity. That's one of the most rewarding aspects. It's, people have to show up and they have to work hard and they want it. But if I can connect them with the right opportunity and right person and right role, that's such a rewarding part of my job. I think it has to be a healthy mix, though. You need a certain level of change in the organization to ignite that kind of momentum to move in a different direction. So it was a healthy mix of, promoting from within and finding those superstars from within, and bringing in some new kind of perspectives and skill sets, and really the blend of all of that different talent. And this is an ongoing process. We're always going to be looking to promote and build great talent. And that's just a core pillar of our strategy. We say that, high potential talent wants to be part of growing organizations. You don't want to be part of an organization that's flat or going backwards. That's not fun for anyone. So, as we can do our jobs as leaders and continue to grow the organization in a meaningful way, we believe high potential talent will want to be a part of that journey and are motivated by that and want to contribute to that. So that's what we're trying to accomplish at Light and Wonder.
I think you guys have done a great job of that, because what I see from the outside is that with the level of team members and building that culture and building that team, it was more about that than the results of what happens from performance. Because if you solve this problem, which would be essentially the root cause of potentially where you're at, everything else flows from there.
Right. Yeah. You're exactly right. The results will come if you center on the right investments. And part of the right investment is great talent. And that's, if I can get that formula right, and we provide the funding on product and infrastructure and, giving the team the tools that they need to be successful, that's it. Like, let them run and do what they're great at. And I think sometimes leaders make the mistake of hiring great people and then getting in their way and not empowering them to do the job they were hired to do. And I think as leaders, you got to just know when to step out of the way and to trust your team, and really enable them to do what they're great at. And that's the environment we try to build. Invest in great talent, give them the tools they need to be successful, and build an environment where they can be successful. Build an environment where they can collaborate and share ideas across other teams. And, that's the, exponential impact you get when you have all of this hypo talent and a great culture. Sky's the limit.
So I want to talk about talent and finding the right people, but my question is this more than anything else. You as a female leader in the industry, which is a very difficult role for you as well, I think. You're one of the first CEOs, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even the first CEO of a major gaming company that's a female. And so you're setting the boundaries for where everyone else is going. You're heavily involved in global gaming women to help diversify our industry a little bit better. We are a very male-dominated industry. How, in your involvement with GGW as the first vice president, how are you able to help develop others that aren't even in your organization?
Yes, I love being involved in global gaming women. I think our whole mission is to create opportunities for women to help in their professional development, whether that's networking or going to a development conference, or, just finding people that will lift them up to gain the confidence to try to put themselves out there or go for the next promotion or job. So there's so many ways that Global Gaming Women tries to help enable more of an even playing field. You're right, we're a male-dominated industry, still are. It's changed since 20-ish years ago when I entered into the organization or the industry, and that's great to see, but we've got a long way to go. Having said that, I don't discriminate when it comes to great talent. It doesn't matter what gender you are or any other attribute. If you have a great work ethic, you want to win, you are a respectful collaborator and just, a great contributor to team goals, and you drive results, and are a highly accountable person, I want you on the team. So I think the job of organizations is to create systems, processes that create an even playing field, give everyone an equal shot. And Global Gaming Women tries to play a role in our industry to help enable that, and also lift women up by providing them the skill set that they need to be successful. But at the end of the day, the person has to step into the opportunity. Leaders have to check themselves on their biases that they might be bringing into the process or decision making. But if organizations can just, evaluate, are they creating an even playing field to give everyone a fair shot? And then the best talent, gets the role or lands the role. I think that's the way we all need to be thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm proud that we here have, I think, one of the largest GGW chapters in the country. We have a lot of incredible female leaders on our team. And one thing that I thought was very important in one of the training sessions that I was able to sneak in and listen to was about the psychological barriers that women have for going for positions. And the line that I heard was, if a guy has like 2 or 3 of the requirements out of the 10, they're still going to go for it.
They're like,
women, they need to make sure they have 10 out of 10, or even the ability to get rejected for a job and go for it again. Like, those are fascinating psychological components that I never really realized until I sat through that. And maybe it's, I think it's a hard truth to listen to sometimes.
But it's very real. It's very real. I think as women, we don't put ourselves out there enough, and we have to own that. No one else is going to do that for us. And I do think there's a psychological element to it. There also might be a skills and training element to it. But we have to I think anyone trying to grow their career, you got to put yourself in that uncomfortable zone and almost challenge yourself to hear the answer no, several times. Like, build your muscle around getting rejected a little bit so that, it's more comfortable in that zone of uncomfortableness. And you're not always going to get a yes, but if you don't even try, the answer is going to be no every time. So it's fascinating. Yeah. I mean, so many men will just, put themselves out there, and I respect that. A lot of men ask in, negotiations, in job offers, and, they don't always get a yes, but oftentimes women don't even ask. So my advice to women is ask. It's okay if the answer is no. It doesn't mean you're less valued or you don't mean as much. But if you don't even put yourself out there and make the ask, it's, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah. A no today doesn't mean a no tomorrow as well. Right?
Yeah.
You turn a no into a yes. I think that's important.
You can't be obnoxious and push it too far.
Even for guys, it's bad too. If you continue to do that at the wrong times.
Yes. Have a level of self-awareness on when to push it and when not to push it. But, at the right time and in the right way, make the ask.
So I'm going to shift gears and talk a little about, since we're still talking about change, but I'm going to talk about change from a form of innovation and how innovation has changed the way we do things. And, I think I've heard you say in another interview that our business is changed. That's what we live with. I say it in our meetings that we have here. If we think that things are going to go exactly the same, we're going to get the same results. We know that we have to continue to grow and change depending on what's happening. How are you guys handling the world of just innovation, which has got to be crazy for you guys? I know how much it is for us. It's got to be crazy for you guys. How do you control that, but also welcome it?
Yeah, I don't think it's controlling, a matter of controlling. I mean, the world's moving forward, whether we choose to acknowledge it and participate in it or not. But yeah, change is a constant. I mean, there's the change program we're running across our organization. There's change in consumer behaviors. I mean, just think about, 20 years ago, the level of consumer change, technology change that has occurred in the world, let alone in the gaming industry. I think when I joined in 2007, it was, everything was like the server-based rage was going on. And then the recession hit, and that kind of quieted all of those dreams of innovation. But I think we have evolved. I mean, I think our industry goes at its own pace, but we do certainly have to pay attention and keep a close pulse on consumer technologies, how consumers, engage in technology on a casino floor. I mean, now there's iGaming and social gaming and so many different forms of gaming that have grown over the last 10, 20 years. So, and this whole idea of bringing different channels of gaming together, powered by technology and backend platforms that can connect that experience. It's something that we have to be leaders of driving that innovation, but we have operators that have to be willing to invest and go on that journey with us. So we have to strike the right balance. And, at the end of the day, our slot consumer is an older demographic. And so we have to make sure that they are willing and able to go on that engagement journey as well. So it's interesting to triangulate all of the elements, but our role as suppliers is to lead the way. And when industry and operators and consumers are ready, they'll let us know by the results that we drive, or the performance that, or by the dollars in their wallet that they spend.
And the path is always moving, but you can't outpace the path. Like, you can't create an entire new map. You got to keep them on the same road. Because I remember just some of the things that failed miserably was because we took too big of a leap in our industry. It just wasn't going to get followed, and then we killed it forever almost there. But some of the things that just are slow moving, and you think about just the popularity of video reel and the way slots play now. As a non-slot player initially in my life, I was just video poker. I never wanted to play a slot machine because it was always just 3 or 5 reels. It was just the standard iteration of what slots used to be.
Yeah.
And the insertion of having fun things happen, and the video components working in conjunction with the game and the bonus features and all of those was a really great journey, I think. And it wasn't too fast for a consumer to follow.
Yeah. It is this like iterative process in our industry. You can't leapfrog it too soon, because a lot of great ideas could be left behind if it's not the right time to introduce them. But if you think about even licensing in our industry, I mean, that was all the rage for 10 years. Gosh, we brought every single license you could imagine into the games. And, that's kind of run its course too. It's definitely kind of come down from the heights of what it was. So yeah, there's been a lot of interesting evolutions over the years.
It's like it could almost reverse license. I think we could have a Huff and Puff movie now at some point in time.
There you go.
Like it should reverse, because the characters in that and what it's created and the fandom behind that
Oh
game.
my gosh.
Is fantastic.
It's so fun. Yeah. I mean, I look at that brand and I am just in awe of where that has gone from the very humble beginnings, and all the iterations of games and all the fun activations that operators are investing in now. It's a lot of fun.
So another thing that I think you shifted when you came over and the team had done was a shift into research and development. Can you talk about the importance of R&D in your industry?
Yeah, I mean, that's the heart and soul of our organization. I always say that's the number one way we drive value to our customers is our R&D engine, our investment in R&D, scaling that investment over time to make sure we are staying ahead of the curve and the share that we're growing in the market. Because what operators want is a level of certainty that we can scale as we grow, and that we're willing and able to support that share position and continue to support that share growth. So it is the number one thing we invest in, we talk about. We have really been intentional about building talent in our studios. We have over 15 global studios, game studios now in the gaming business within R&D. And, our mantra is it's all about the games. We wake up every single day thinking about how do we make the best game content in the industry, and how do we, at the heart of everything we do is our talented game design studios and all of the functions that support them, our hardware engineering team that's building the canvas in which they design upon. So we just are obsessed with how do we amplify our R&D engine and make sure it's just running on all cylinders, and we're giving those teams everything that they need and the environment they need to be successful. And they're doing it. I mean, they're creative, they are innovative, they are passionate about what they do, they are players, so they're right there alongside the players on your casino floor, playing these games and thinking about how can they take it to the next level.
The investment into an area that doesn't directly drive revenue, I think, is so important in any business. And I think that you can almost mirror that in real life too, as well as the investment on things that necessarily aren't driving your business bring you joy. And I bring this up because every time we talk about your family and your 3 kids and your husband, like that, I can see that it brings joy to you. How do you manage that in your role? Because you do a lot of traveling, you're always busy. How are you able to manage a version of work-life balance to continue to drive your energy?
It's hard. I think one of the things I don't want to do is present this picture that it's easy and, trying to do it all is something that's easily achieved. It's not. It's hard. There are things that I miss, in my personal life when I have to be on the road for work. There are times when I have to prioritize my personal life and I miss things at work. So I think this idea of work-life balance is not a concept that is reality all the time. As I've advanced in leadership positions, I've come to realize the time horizon in which I can achieve that balance lengthens. So there are times of the quarter, we're a publicly traded company, so we operate on a quarterly schedule. There are times of the quarter where I'm a lot busier than other times of the quarter. So I've just kind of learned to like really lean into those busy times and just accept the fact that I'm not going to get a lot of personal time during this time, and that's okay. I need to give a little bit more to my work life right now. And then when things slow down, I lean into the more personal time. So as long as I can achieve that balance over a time horizon that might look a little bit longer, I might not get it every single day or every single week. But if I'm balancing it out over time, I'm happy with that. I think learning about boundaries was a learning curve I had to go through, and I had to learn the hard way. It just happened to be at the time of my career where I was advancing through the organization. I was having babies and starting a family, and you're almost forced to learn the art of not only identifying boundaries, but enforcing boundaries. And it's hard, especially when you're trying to grow in your career, to find that voice and to find that courage to say, no, actually, I need to really prioritize this over work right now, and I need to enforce this boundary. So I think that's another, it was a hard learning curve to have to go through, but you have to do it in order to ultimately find that balance. But yeah, it's tough, but what I'm role modeling for my kids, I've got one son, two daughters. And I think, yes, I'm role modeling great things for my daughters, but equally so for my son. And they give me kudos all the time. And, they're very proud of, what I do. And they feel that I show up for them as a mom, which is super important to me. That's my number one priority. And I know that they know that, and they feel that all the time.
Yeah, I've seen the sacrifices that you put in, and leaving things at 3 a.m. after working until midnight the night before, and understanding that, yes, it's going to be difficult. And it's one of those lessons that I try and tell future leaders, look, you just can't have the best of both and expect it to just happen for you. Yeah. It's always a journey. It's always a challenge. There are always priorities and sacrifices that you're going to have to manage and figure out.
Yep.
What's the most important thing at the time? And there are some definite, like, hey, this is I have to do this no matter what, or I have to do this no matter what. And sometimes you have to figure out how to manage that and choose between some of those things. And it means sometimes you miss out on some things, which is terrifyingly bad. But it also is part of the journey, because if you don't do this thing over here, you don't get to do these other fun things.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always tell people when we have career conversations, don't just be tunnel vision to think like, yes, I want to advance vertically in an organization, because every time you take a step up, there are trade-offs on your time, what you have to put your energy to, what you will have time to do in your personal life, the travel component. So you have to really think through those things before pursuing those opportunities. And you have to be willing to make those trade-offs, especially in a senior leadership position. More is required of you. And that means you have to make decisions on what you're not going to do, perhaps in your personal life. But yeah, it's a constant, balancing act.
So boundaries was one of those topics that you thought through, and like that was an early lesson learned. If you could go back and tell yourself some other lessons that you wish you would have learned earlier in your career, what other lessons would there be out there for you?
I think network, really put yourself out there. I think this is something that women aren't not naturally, prone to do or think that they're good at. They might be uncomfortable, especially if it's a more male-dominated industry and they feel like they're the minority in the room. But networking and just building your connections, I mean, especially in this industry, the impact relationships have is just so much far and beyond anything else. So I think networking is really important. Yes, identifying your boundaries, and that's part of taking inventory on what's important to you. Some people love to work. They're like, put me in anything, throw me in anything. That's fine. Like, I have no boundaries. I want to take on everything. That's totally fine. But, take the time to really assess and have an inventory of what's important to you, and make sure you identify, but also reinforce those boundaries would be my advice. And then also get uncomfortable. You're not always, if you choose to live in your comfort zone, you are not going to learn and grow. And it was one of the hardest decisions of my career to leave Aristocrat and go to Scientific Games. The reason I did it was because I felt I wasn't growing at the rate that I knew I could. And I knew I had to put myself in a totally different situation and an uncomfortable situation in order to continue to grow at the rate that I wanted to. So it's a lived experience that you got to push yourself, trust yourself that you're going to figure it out. You might not have all the answers, but if you throw yourself in the deep end and you believe in yourself, you're going to figure it out one way or another, especially if you surround yourself with great people that you trust and that will support you, whether that's your family or in your professional life. You'll figure it out one way or another. So just get yourself out of your comfort zone.
I think it's easier to do that when you're passionate about a goal or some place or thing that you want to do. And it's one of the other hard lessons that I have sometimes talking to future leaders is that they happen to be really good at something, but they don't love what they do. And so as they continue to grow vertically into this area of something they hate, it just doesn't ever help them along the way.
Right.
So I think some of the importance of how do you help people find that source, and sometimes that move isn't vertically, and sometimes that moves horizontally,
right.
Or even sometimes it's downward into a different direction and out to a side to get them to an area that helps them have the passion to have the energy to do what they need to do to be successful.
Exactly. And I don't think it's ever too late, but the more that you can reflect on that earlier in your career and make those lateral moves and, use that time to just get experience across lots of different functions or verticals or whatever it might be. Maybe it's a different organization, and take that time to figure out what really resonates with you. The longer in your career, and certainly the higher up in an organization you go, you have compensation that becomes more of a consideration. You might have a family that you're supporting. So you might not feel like you have the ability to take those risks. So I always tell, interns or people early in their career, just take those chances, use these first 5 or 10 years as exploratory. You've got nothing to lose. The stakes are so much lower, and take some risk and figure out, what the best path is for you. Because you're in college, you're in university, you have no idea. Like, what percentage of people actually know, like, yes, this is the path I'm going to go on, and that's what I'm going to do. You have no idea. So just use those early years of your career to explore and discover new things.
Yeah, I was an engineering major initially.
Really?
I'm far away from that at this point, but I think it's funny that, I have always attuned it to like going to a restaurant. And if you like a specific item on the menu, you're always going to get that. But you don't know that you don't like anything else on the menu.
Right.
Like, take chances. And you got to do that, especially early in your career. You got to take those chances and eat everything on the menu. Try every item on the menu to make sure that one item that you had the first time was great. Or maybe there's something different and something better. I think you always have to look at that. And even as you continue to grow, because we have so much change in our industry, it's like you always should try and listen and learn, and be a constant learner of different things. I know you're a big fan of that too, and very studious from that point of view as well, of learning different things. Talk about that with, again, I always look at it from the lens of a future leader, because you only have the people who are around you that guide the direction that you think what leadership is, and sometimes other points of view are important.
Well, I think the what not to do is almost as important part of your learning journey as the what to do. And 100%. If you're lucky enough to work under amazing leaders, which I have been in my career, but there were certainly leaders where I was observing mental note, never do this because it made me feel a certain way, or it made someone else feel a certain way, or it didn't come across as a good look. So I think you need to be kind of observing for both, and certainly honing your own style as you build your career, and as we get back to that importance of authenticity. But yeah, I think this, endless journey of learning and curiosity and growing and taking the time to invest and give that gift to yourself. And look, it doesn't mean you have to go back to school. A lot of it is on the job, or again, just getting out of your comfort zone and putting yourself in a situation where you got to figure it out. Like, that's the best way to learn anything. And, as you progress in these leadership positions, I never did this job before 3 years ago. You're put in a lot of, ambiguous situations where you might not have all the answers. You certainly don't have all the data to inform your decisions. You have to figure it out. You have to kind of have a level of intuition, but also, trust your judgment, surround yourself with great people that can support you. But a lot of these situations we've never been through before. And so you just have to kind of trust that you're going to make the right decisions.
We've talked a lot about leadership and how to continue to grow, but I want to put a plug into our industry, because I think our industry is incredible. What do you like the most working in this industry?
I would say hands down the people we get to work with. That's everything from the people in the organization that I'm a part of, but our customers. I mean, Kenji, you and I have been hanging out at events, and it's just so amazing that, we have the relationships that we have. We work in a fun industry. Many of us have been in this industry for years and years and years. We've seen each other evolve and grow and get promoted to different positions. And it's just, I think, a really special part of our industry that hopefully we don't take for granted. And I see people struggle when they enter into the industry as a newbie, and they're like, it feels like these trade shows are like high school reunions. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Everyone, knows each other for years and years and genuinely enjoys spending time together. And I think that's a really special part of our industry that, probably doesn't exist a lot of other places.
It's a fun industry for sure. And I think part of when you get in to the industry, that networking component you talked about earlier, so important, but it's not like it's difficult, because everyone in the industry does a lot of that. It's part of what keeps us successful. So breaking into the quote group is never really an issue. I think it's just one of those, they're fun people. But the other thing I love about the industry is that it's always forward looking. It's always evolving. It's always changing. There's always something that's happening, but our business is in fun. That's the best part about it.
It really is. It is. And I think it's easy, like the call a friend component of our industry is there, when you're struggling with something, or we might all be going through a situation because of a regulation or a macro situation. You can call each other up and just say, like, how are you thinking about this? Like, what are you experiencing? And there's comfort in that. You don't feel like you're alone. And, I think there's a high level of collaboration in this industry where we're willing to have those conversations and help each other out and support each other.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Bruce Howard over at Valley View. During COVID, he helped organize a call for all the California GMs and AGMs and people who are there to help make decisions. And that call still exists to this day.
Wow.
That once every month or two, all the competitors in the same area getting together, talking about what's happening, trying to protect each other as well. And so, right. Yes, we're competitors to some degree, but we're also partners in our industry and making sure that we provide a safe environment, that we provide fun, that we do it the right way. I think that's so important, that we don't we don't forget the human side of who we are. Yes, we can be competitors, but on the other end of it, we are all still humans, and we all need to be better about that.
That's right. Yes. Well said.
All right. So before we close out, I'm going to give a few little quick answer questions here for you, just to a little more get to know Siobhan stuff. So let's start with hobbies. Hobbies of Siobhan.
Not a lot, because
Work, watching kids.
I work a lot and I've got 3 kids. Most of my discretionary time I dedicate to my kids. For a few years, I felt really bad that I didn't have a hobby to answer this question. But then I got to the point I was like, you know what? I'm good. Like, I'll retire someday. I'll have plenty of hobbies, but right now, probably not a lot. I'm a foodie, so I love eating good food. So if you want to consider that a hobby,
I believe that can be considered a hobby there as well. If you do it properly, you know, when you go to a restaurant, you order 10 items off the menu. I feel like that's a win.
I'm not choosing the one dish every time.
I appreciate that. Yes. How about book recommendations?
Let's see. Back to our kind of introvert, extrovert qualities of leadership. I always recommend, because I think it's such a fascinating topic, and I talk to several people about this. Quiet is a good book. It really explores kind of the societal expectations of leaders and how this kind of more extroverted style has been kind of the go-to reference for what a good leader looks like, but it really explains how a quieter person or more introverted person can lead with just as much impact. So that's always a really good go-to book on that topic. Right now, me and my leadership team are reading Power Score, which is really focused on 3 areas that leaders and organizations should just be obsessed with. It's finding great talent, building great relationships, and setting the right priorities. And if you can nail those 3 things, you'll drive exponential impact as a leader in an organization. Because if you think about it, you want great talent, you want them focused on the right things that are going to move the needle through priorities, but you have to have the right relationships in your organization or in your industry to get things done, and not let those lack of relationships stand in the way. So, and then you kind of calculate your effectiveness on all of these 3 attributes, and how can you kind of move the needle forward on your Power Score.
I'm so getting that book now. I just wrote that down. Favorite quote?
Favorite quote. I have one sitting by my desk. So I'll just read it because I have it on the wall by my desk, that I've always referenced. It's, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
That's great.
That's Steve Jobs. And it really speaks to, you know, having confidence in oneself. And, you know, like I said, as you advance in leadership, you're navigating a lot of ambiguity. You don't necessarily have all the answers or the data to make, you know, you're never going to have 100% of the data to make, you know, a data informed decision. So there's a level of intuition you have to trust, and there's a level of heart and caring that you have to bring into leadership. And if you truly care about the job and the team that you're leading, you have to trust your heart and your intuition. So that one really speaks to me.
Love that. Love that. Most memorable trip?
Oh, man. So many on my professional career side of things. But a couple of years ago, our family went to Costa Rica, and that was a really awesome trip. We did all the adventure things, like zip lining across this crazy ravine, whitewater rafting. We went to like a cocoa farm and learned all about chocolate. It was an amazing trip. So that one's definitely up there.
That sounds like one of the vacations you need a vacation from after you get back, because It's all packed in there. Exactly. All right. As we close out for all of these, we usually ask to give 3 tips that you would provide anyone who wants to take their career to the next level. I know we've spoken about a lot of them, but what would your 3 tips be?
Yeah, I'm just going to summarize some of the things I've already touched on. Always be learning and growing, you know, maintain that curiosity. It's what leaders look for in people rising up the ranks. You know, be curious, ask questions, always want to be learning. Continue to cultivate your network. That's going to get you connected to that next opportunity, whether that's a project or initiative or a new role. Continue to cultivate your network, not with the intention of landing a promotion or a role. Like, it has to be genuine, and you have to, have that natural curiosity of wanting to get to know people and wanting to build out your network, but continue to cultivate that. And then I think stretch yourself and get uncomfortable, like we've talked about, and really have that confidence that you're going to figure it out one way or another. And, with that confidence, you'll continue to build your skill set and grow and develop. So be prepared to get uncomfortable.
I love that. Love that. Siobhan Lane, thank you so much for being here and joining me. I'm honored to call you a friend and partner in this journey that we continue to go through called life.
Yeah.
But again, can't wait to see you again. But again, thank you so much for doing this with us. I know our listeners are going to love hearing from you. I love the perspectives you gave. So really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Check out more episodes at thenextlevelcareers.com.